Hey, what's happening, everybody? In this video, we're going to be doing a fantasy book review of Black Sun Rising by C.S. Friedman. Picked up the book because it had a bomb title, and also the artwork is pretty sweet. The artwork's by Michael Whelan, which he does the Stormlight Archive books by Brandon Sanderson, I believe. But anyways, I found this book. While it's not grimdark, just the whole concept of the book is like super dark, and I thought it worked awesome. Basically, this is a science fantasy book, and it takes place in the future where colonists from Earth have settled the planet of Erna, but the only thing is, Erna is totally different from Earth and a lot more savage. Now, even though it takes place in the future, because humans have the power to go to other planets, really it's actually once they're on Erna, there's a thing called the Great Sacrifice, where it's not really described in detail, but basically you get the idea that most of technology was abandoned for survival. And the reason for that is that on Erna, the natural environment and the ecosystem has naturally occurring fae, which the closest thing I think I can compare it to is like in Star Wars, the midichlorians that sort of permeate like everything, like all over the place. Basically, people's fears and anxious thoughts and that sort of thing can affect the phase stream, and in the wilderness, those like fearful currents can manifest themselves into abominations based upon whatever was being feared. And these abominations can then basically roam the world and basically kill people, and that's why it seems that there's really not that many pockets of civilization left on Erna. It really is just like a really brutal and savage planet. But to the story, the main character is a warrior priest named Damien Kilcannon Price, and he's basically on a mission to. There's a sort of reformed church on this planet, and part of one faction basically says you can't use any sort of sorcery to work the Fae, that's bad. The other says, no, as long as you do it for good, that's fine. And that's kind of like a minor subplot. But anyways, he's a sorcerer who can work the Fae for healing. And so he goes to a city where he meets Siani, which he kind of develops feelings for. But then, like usual, something happens to her, and they have to go on a giant quest to help her out. On this quest, they have to enlist the help of a Gerald Tarrant, and he is one of the savviest, badass, evil characters like I've ever read. Of course, I haven't read like that many, but still, he was pretty sick. Basically, he has found ways to extend his life by living off the Dark Fae. The downside of that is he basically has completely lost his humanity, and he essentially lives off the fear of other people. But he also has his own reasons to help Damien and Siani out. He basically goes on and helps Damien and Siani out because the person who messed with Siani is actually theoretically more evil than even he is, and obviously he can't have that. The power behind, or the force that harmed Siani, is too unknown and too powerful to be left alone. Let's start with the negatives. There's one nitpicky thing and one bigger thing. The first one, the small one, is she used a lot of the same phrases a lot, in the same vocabulary a lot, and it just, when you're reading it, I don't know, that just annoys me. For example, anytime anyone bleeds or there's something that's the color red, instead of red or crimson or vermilion, every time it is the word carmine. A bigger con of the book is the reasons behind Damien helping Siani on this quest. Basically, they're going to a very unknown and dangerous part of the world, and it's all because he believes that he might have a feeling for her. Maybe. And it's literally like, what? He's only met her for literally maybe like a week or two, and they go out to dinner like once, and that's it. Now, on the plus side, the whole concept of the Fae and the Dark Fae is, I don't know, I thought was really cool. It's not completely fleshed out, and a lot of things are kind of hazy around the edges of how it works, but it's explained a little bit, and there's 2 more books in the series, and it'll probably be explained a little bit better or more thoroughly in those as well. And even though it's not dark or grimdark in the sense of a lot of, violence and gore and that sort of thing, it's more of like a psychological dark, where pretty much even like just the whole idea of actually being afraid makes things worse because your fears will manifest themselves somewhere else in the world. Now, I know this book won't be for some, but overall, I'm going to give Black Sun Rising, the first book in the Coldfire Trilogy, 4.5 stars out of 5. I really enjoyed it. If more like, it's definitely a darker, more somewhat psychological thriller, and to me, it just worked. I'll definitely be reading the other 2 in the series, When True Night Falls and Crown of Shadows. And until next time, remember, read victoriously.